Today we're going to be continuing our For and Against series, and we're going to be doing it with the first hero pack, which is Captain America. I'm super excited for this because he's really good. Spoiler alert, he's really good hero. So anyway, let us jump into the cards in 1 second. If you don't know this series, well, you should go check out the other videos first. But basically, I make arguments for Captain America, I make arguments against him, and I try to be as objective as I possibly can without putting like my personal feelings into it. So anyway, we're going to go through his cards. We're going to talk about what's good, what's bad, all that fun stuff, maybe some ideas and suggestions to help you play him. Let's go check out his cards. All right, to start off with, we're going to look at the Steve Rogers side. He's only a 3 recovery, which does kind of stink. It's a little on the low side, especially for having 11 life. So I don't really like Captain America getting hit with too much damage or any other ways to ready him up, not ready him up, to heal him, such as downtime or crew quarters, something like that. Will help you out, sure. Help you out a good amount. So 11 hit points, 6 hand size. He's a shield and soldier trait. We're getting a little bit more with soldier now. I think Cable helped us out a bit, but not a ton. The shield build, okay, you can kind of do shield with him. I've messed around with it a little bit. I hope with the new shield expansion, we'll get even more shield stuff out there to maybe, not that Captain America needs help, but it feels like I fall into a pattern with Captain America if it's a lot of ally swarm stuff, and we'll get into that in a second. But maybe they'll get more shield stuff. We're going to do some cool things with him on Alter Ego. Who knows? All right, Living Legend, reduce the cost of the first ally played each round by 1. So this confuses, I think, a lot of people, including me, right, of how this works. So if you're playing True Solo, if you are Steve Rogers in the beginning of the game and you play an ally, it will be 1 cheaper. So if the ally costs 2, it would only cost you 1. If you are on Alter Ego and you haven't played an ally yet and you flip up to Hero and try doing it, well, it's not there anymore. So the ally will not be cheaper. If you're playing multiplayer, it's whoever, if you're already in Alter Ego, it's whoever plays the first ally will be 1 cheaper. Okay. Because it's just not played by you each round, it's just played in general. If you are in hero form, and you play an ally and then flip down to Alter Ego, the next hero won't be 1 cheaper because you already played a first ally, right? Like it checked that already. So hopefully that answers a lot of questions because I know there's a lot to come around with Living Legend, but that's the quick overview of it. All right, so set up, search your deck and discard pile for Captain America Shield. Upgrade the add the upgrade to your hand and then shuffle your deck. Again, it's nice to get that shield right away, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a little bit. Captain America's stat line is a 222 stat line. This is a really good stat line, especially for True Solo. It's really strong, really nice. Drops him down to a 5 hand size on the hero side, which is completely fine. Now, he could do this all day. It's an action. An action. Discard 1 card from your hand to ready Captain America. Limit once per round, not per phase. This is incredibly strong to do. It's nice that it doesn't have to trigger off of anything. So if you defend it with Captain America, you can throw away a card in the beginning and then ready him up to attack or thwart or whatever it may be. Anything that allows you to ready up, incredibly strong, incredibly good, really good action that he has on his hero side. All right, now we have his signature ally, Agent 13, Sharon Carter, 3-cost ally, 213 stat line. Shield trait, so if you want to mess around with some shield stuff, this could be a way to help with that. After she enters play, after Agent 13 enters play, remove 2 threat from a scheme. If I wouldn't do a sidekick on her because you want her entering play, you want her to be recurred back in there, which is really strong. The fact that for 3 costs, you can basically remove 2 threat from a scheme, have her thwart 2, right? And then use her another round to thwart 2, and then use her as a blocker. Incredibly strong, incredibly good. Again, this leads into that recursion type build because you want her in over and over and over, which led a lot of people to play leadership with him. And again, back on his Alter Ego side, you reduce the cost of the first ally play each round by 1. So again, leadership Avenger build was kind of like the thing people did with Captain America in the beginning. Still makes a lot of sense with him, but it's a definitely a very strong way to play. All right, Fearless Determination. We have 2 copies of this card. It's a 0-cost defense superpower, which kind of stinks that you can't use Death Focus because it's 0 cost. Actually, no, it's a good thing, so disregard that. Captain America gets +1 threat or thwart until the end of the phase. Draw 1 card. Now, this is really nice because if you play this card, right, you can draw a card which just like there's no effective cost because you're drawing back to your card size or your hand size, not your hand size, but you're drawing back the card. So there's no real cost playing this, but you go from a 2 threat removal stat line to a 3. You can exhaust and remove 3 threat, throw away a card to play. I can do this all day to ready up and then thwart for another 3. That's massive amounts. That's massive amounts to do for true solo. Even for multiplayer, that's really nice to remove 3 threat from here and then 3 threat from here, right? That's really good. And then if you get Agent 13 in on top of it, and you can remove another 2 and another 2, like it's crazy the threat reduction he can do. It's really, really strong. It's nice that there's 2 copies of this card. I think this really helps out Captain America, makes him incredibly strong. But when you get this card, if there's a lot of threat on things, you kind of have to lean into the readying up ability. I think with I can do this all day, and then this really is worth it. Then, in my opinion. All right, Heroic Strike. There's 3 copies of it. This is kind of his main attack card. It's a 3-cost event. You deal 6 damage to an enemy. Not great. 3 for 6, not great. But if you paid using a strength resource, you get to stun that enemy. We'll get into it a little bit. He should have the ability to easily get strength resources because he will have resource generators for that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. This is a really good attack card. Again, if you're playing a stalwart enemy, it's not as strong, but you don't have to worry about the strength resource anymore, right? You can just whatever 3 to do 6. I wish it was stronger than against a stalwart enemy, but it's okay. Against steady, since there's 3 copies of this card and you lean into stun builds, you can still get it done. But against 80% of the villains out there that don't have steady or stalwart, it's a very, very strong card, especially for solo. Even for multiplayer, like 2-player games, it's strong. But for solo, it's incredibly strong to be able to just stun lock your enemy. All right, then we have Shield Block. It's a 0-cost event. It is a defense card. When you would take any amount of damage, exhaust Captain America's shield to prevent all of that damage, which is just incredibly strong. So for me, this leads me into a lot of perfect protection builds, right? There's 2 of these cards in there. You can play into perfect protection. You can also do flow like water stuff where there's a lot of triggers in flow like water based off of not taking any damage, which is really strong. It is a defense card, so it helps flow like water to deal damage and all that fun stuff. And because people might be wondering what flow like water is, it's a 2-cost upgrade. After you play a defense card, deal 1 damage to the attacking enemy. So again, this is your defense card. Flow like water builds are really strong with Captain America. I mean, really strong with Captain America. I've done a ton of videos on them. I think I did it somewhat recently too. It's a great way to play him. You'll play defense the entire time and do stupid amounts of damage. It's really strong. But anyway, Shield Block is really, really good for that. A lot of people wonder why you exhaust Captain America's shield. It's solely so that you can't play like 2 shield blocks in a row, essentially. But yeah, you get to prevent all damage. And again, it's after everything's turned up, right? Because it's when you would take any amount of damage. So it's not when you're choosing to defend, then you have to play Shield Block. It's the boost cards have been decided. They've been flipped. We know what it's going to be. So when you take any amount of damage, do the shield block then. All right, Shield Toss is an interesting card, I think. 0-cost event. Discard X cards from your hand. So obviously Shield Toss doesn't count as one of them, so you have to do Shield Toss. And then you return Captain America's shield from play to your hand. You deal 4 damage to X enemy. If you are running into a lot of minions, this is generally a great way to clear them out. On top of that, you could do a shield toss, discard some cards, but keep 1 in your hand, let's say, and knock out most of the minions that are on the table. And if there's anything left, you can exhaust with Steve to knock them out, right? Throw away to do this all day to ready him up, do another 2 damage somewhere. That's dealing with like enemies that are 5 and 6 life instead of just 4. It's a really strong card. As long as I think you have, some enemies out there. Now, you could make the argument that if you just had the villain out there, it'd be a 2 for 4 cost, which isn't great, but it's not bad, right? But I do think it makes a lot more sense if you have multiple enemies out there. Some people have done minion swarm builds where they try to get all the minions out there to do cards to draw off of those minions. You could do that and then try to shield toss all of them out of there. But it's kind of tricky to do, especially if you only have 2 of these cards in the deck, so it could be a little rough. Then we have Steve's Apartment. It's a 1-cost support. It's a location, alter ego action, exhaust Steve's Apartment, draw 1 card and heal 1 damage from Steve Rogers. Incredibly strong. It's really nice. Again, we talked about recovery earlier. The recovery is a little bit low. Being able to trigger Steve's Apartment and then get the extra card draw is really strong. Again, I don't know if this card would exist like this nowadays because it's a little bit, not that it's broken, but it's really strong. So if you do a build where you're doing a confuse lock, you can constantly flip down, lean into this card to draw more cards, flip back up, then stun lock the enemy and just wail away on them. There's so many different types of builds you can do with Captain America. And that's kind of one of the great things about him. And also when you flip down, right, you're playing an ally for free. A lot of the builds though with Cap revolve around getting an ally into play pretty constantly, it seems. And it makes sense. You really should, but you're going to have enough cards to do it. You're going to be able to reduce the cost each time you flip down. Like people love Confuse Lock with Steve. Again, confuse them, flip down, get the ally in cheaper, flip back up, and then play your attack card that allows you to stun an enemy. Right, so it's really interesting builds you can do with him on that side of things. You can do ally swarm things by reducing costs, by doing a few other things, which we'll get into in a second. And then again, playing protection with him is really strong in Flow Like Water, perfect protection, but this card is great if you choose to flip down constantly. Then we have Captain America's Helmet. This is the weirdest one out of all of them. It's a 1-cost upgrade. When Captain America would be defeated, set his hit point dial to 1 instead, then discard this card. It's interesting that you just discard it. Nowadays, with like Drax and some other people, that you would remove the card from the game, I believe, instead of discarding it, and then they get like a couple life or whatever. It's also interesting that it's only 1 life. Like it's really not that much. But if you are able to be defeated, set your hit point down to 1, and then your next turn flip down, use your apartment to get 1 life, exhaust to get 3 more, and you're back up to 5 now. That's not terrible. Build up a new hand size, put an ally in for cheap, heal again. Now you're back up to 8. Use the apartment, you're back up to 9. Like you can get it to work as long as you're not going to lose by massive amounts of threat on the main scheme or anything. So it's a weird card. It's a card I feel like that doesn't get played as much because just setting your hit point down to 1 can be really weak. If this damage happens against the villain and then there's a minion that just deals 1 damage, like you're done, right? So it can kind of feel weird in that sense. Hopefully you're leaning the shield blocks or defending or whatever it may be. So it's a fine card, but it's not like a great card. All right, Captain America's Shield's a 1-cost upgrade, which is restricted, so you can only have 1 other restricted card in play. He gets +1 defense, so now his stat line is a 2-2-3 stat line, and he gains Retaliate 1. This is, again, why we talk about Flow Like Water. If you're going to be defending all the time and play defense cards, you can do that to have 3 defense. If you did something like Desperate Defense, which will allow you to spend 1 resource, you would get +2 on the defense for that attack, so you'd be having 5 defense, and you'd be able to ready up your hero. Plus, you get the retaliate damage from Captain America's shield, and also Flow Like Water from the Desperate Defense would deal 1 damage, right? Like we've only showed a very small snippet of what a Flow Like Water deck would be like, and you're already going to do crazy amounts of damage. You're not going to take any damage, and you're going to be readied up for the future because the next turn you can exhaust, deal 2 damage, throw away a card to do this all day, do 2 more damage, right? It's just rinse and repeat. It's really strong, really good. The shield is really good, especially for leaning into that kind of defense build. And even if you did an ally swarm build and all you did was just defend for all your allies, that's pretty good too, right? Have your allies thwart and attack because you're going to be able to get them in cheaper. And then you sit there and just defend for 3. Against most villains, you're going to be pretty strong. Plus, you have the retaliate. So if they gain a tough, you're knocking off that tough, which is really strong because then your allies aren't wasting anything by running straight into a tough. They're able to do a lot more then. So it's a really strong card. Obviously, you're getting it from the setup. Put this card in super quick and right away. All right, the last 2 cards he has is Super Soldier Serum. 2-cost upgrades. They are his resource generators. This is phenomenal that you don't have to play something like Quinn Carrier. It's going to generate those strength resources, which you talked about earlier for his attack. It's going to help the stun lock build if you're building into that. If you do anything else with strength and resources, it's going to help with that. But get both of these out there, basically just playing doubles and you get resource generators. It's really good, really strong. I think this is the first time or one of the first times we've seen a resource generator like this. It feels like 2-cost resource generators in a hero's kit. It's really strong. Most heroes nowadays have 1 of them. He has 2, which is nuts. It just helps you pay for so much. And again, allows you to not have to throw away a card to pay for a card. Instead, you're using this to pay for your defense card. So again, you want to hold on to at least 1 card so you can do this all day and throw it away. Your goal should be to ready up your hero by doing that probably as much as you feasibly can. So what's there to say about Captain America that hasn't been said? Is he one of the strongest heroes in the game? Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think if you were to look at him objectively, he is probably at worst top 10 in the top 10 of strength heroes. Now, personal favorites, I actually really like him because there's so many different ways to play him. You can do a stun lock build. You could do a confused lock build if you lean into justice. You could do an ally swarm build in any aspect. especially with recurring allies such as Agent 13. You can do a shield build because of the shield traits on things. That makes it just run a little bit easier. Now, you can do shield with most things, but because of having Agent 13 with shield, it makes it a little bit easier. Because you have the 2 resource generators, you can run more expensive cards. You can do a lot of things in protection because of the natural built retaliation and 3 defense and the shield block, which doesn't allow you to take any damage and is a defense card. There's so many different ways to play Captain America that's kind of what makes him so fun, is that there is no, it feels like there's no wrong way to play him, right? He's just so versatile in what he does, and it makes sense. I mean, as like Captain America, he should be able to kind of do it all, and he really can. It really feels like he can. Uh, I, I mean, people have always talked about this. Is he the strongest hero? Is he one of the strongest hero? I would have a, if I was to do an objective tier ranking or list ranking or whatever, it'd be really hard for me to put him outside the top 5. I think impossible to put outside the top 10, which is crazy when you think about it because of how far we've come in design, where we have a lot of strong heroes, a lot of weak heroes now. And Captain America has kind of survived all of it. I mean, does he have his weak points? Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of his helmet. I think his helmet could be a lot better. It kind of feels weird. Steve's apartment is good as long as you get out there and you have a build where you're flipping down constantly. If you're not planning to flip down at all, because again, a flow like water deck, for example, I don't need to flip down. I'm just going to defend the whole time and I'm going to win. So I don't need to get Steve's apartment out there, which isn't a negative thing against Steve's apartment, but it just leans into how versatile his builds can be. I also think that his Agent 13 signature ally is one of the stronger allies out there. Just so nice getting her out there to, again, remove 2 threat. And that's another key thing that I didn't bring up with that, is that you're removing threat. So if, again, you were confused or whatever, or somehow she got, well, she wouldn't get confused off the response, but you're removing threat. It's not a thwarting action for whatever that's worth. But yeah, and just feel this determination to remove threat. Like he can just do so much, and he can do so much in just his kit. I do think it was one of the first kits we saw where just it was completely well rounded and slightly strong. But it wasn't like, it never feels like to me with him that it's OP powerful. Right? You still got to do things, you still got to build out or run whatever your idea is. But I do think he's one of the most versatile heroes out there because of his kit and everything he can do and how he leans into different things. And because the Avenger trait is so well supported, because Shield's it's not well supported, but we have some decent Shield cards. With next expansion, maybe we'll get even more Shield stuff, which allows him to do a lot more. Who knows? But as far as like sheer power, even against a stalwart enemy, I wouldn't lean into the stalwarts or the stun lock strategy. That you can do a flow like water strategy and it'll be incredibly strong, or a perfect defense strategy or something, or even an ally swarm strategy would be really strong. This is what I think makes him so great and such a unique hero. So again, as far as strength goes, I think it's hard to put him outside the top 10. And if you disagree with me, let me know down in the comments. I'd be interested to hear that. If you don't think he deserves a top 10 ranking for just power in this game. But I think he deserves that. And he is I think, one of the most fun heroes out there because of his kit. Like I said, let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you all next time.